The obvious suspects. Let's start at the top. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. I'm going to start with Judge. Boom or bust on Aaron Judge. And I really view this in the lens of, is this guy going to stay on the field and prove that he is worthy of a long-term commitment? Because we are entering the territory where 2023 is around the corner. It's crazy to say it, but it is. And Aaron Judge seemed like a shoo-in for a long-term commitment that would make him a Yankee for life. But another injury-plagued season last year, got back in time for the playoffs. He hasn't played a full season, and by full season we mean 140-ish plus games since his rookie year, where he hit 50 plus home runs and set records and took the league by storm. Even got hurt in 2016 when he first came up. So it's safe to say, beyond the ones that were out of his control, an injury prone player. I am going a boom on Aaron Judge this season. Gentlemen, he is going to have a 130 plus game season, which is, again, not a lot in an 162 game season. It's not durable by any stretch, but it will allow him a lane to hit 40 to 45 home runs and win an MVP potentially. Show what he's made of. He is a Gold Glove right fielder. You see it with the WAR year in and year out. When he can stay on the field for 100 plus games, he's going to give you 5.5, 6 wins. So I'm going boom on Aaron Judge. I think the strength and conditioning, whatever they got done this offseason, is going to work. He plays 130 games or so, and he's Aaron Judge.
I'm going to bust on this one. I've really been going back and forth the entire time you were talking, so forgive me. But I think I'm going to bust in the sense that he's going to play 130 games. I think when he's on the field, he will be good. We've seen that. I don't think that's necessarily a dispute. But again, it's a matter of being on the field. And really, since his rookie year, as you said, Emmanuel, he has not shown the ability to do that. 2018 was kind of a freak thing. He gets hit on the hand. That's one thing, of course. But I still have a lot of concerns about his ability to stay out there, be healthy, and in turn, provide the production that he's capable of over a 130 or 140 game stretch. So I am going to call a bust on this one. I don't think Aaron Judge plays 130 games. He'll be good when he's in the lineup. Don't get me wrong. But I am a little bit more bearish on just how much he's actually going to play. So I'm going to bust.
It's been a struggle for Aaron Judge. There's no doubt in the staying healthy department. And it's something that I know the Yankees have invested a lot in going back to last year, overhauling their entire strength and conditioning department. And the results perhaps in year one were not great, but I'll give them a little bit of a pass because of 2020. And if you think that they were able to implement what they wanted to implement, I just don't think that's the case. So everybody was going to get hurt with the way that 2020 was constructed. So I'll give him a pass on that one. I'm inclined to say boom for Aaron Judge. I think that I'm thinking that what the Yankees have put in place are going to have a positive effect on the players that they have going forward. And we're going to get to Giancarlo Stanton in a moment here as well. But I think that Judge is going to be able to stay healthy. As you said, Emmanuel, I think he'll be able to play the 130 games. And I think the Yankees are going to take more care of making sure that Aaron Judge is good to go in the health department going forward. If that means maybe DHing him a little bit more than they otherwise would. And I think that that's going to be the case for the most part with Giancarlo Stanton this year as well. But I'm inclined to think this is going to be a good year for Judge, who is also not going to come off of a wear and tear of 162 last year. I'm thinking, and perhaps it's a little over optimistic, but I'm going to go with a boom for Aaron Judge this year.
You have Brett Gardner back in the mix, and the Yankees will certainly pick their spots, give Judge and Stanton, respectively, their day offs, which plays to their benefit. With someone like Judge, I think the time is ticking. So the boomer bust is an important question this year because you really have to make an assessment. If not this offseason, then at some point in 2022, is this guy getting a contract of 6 or 7 years?
I think the contract point that you bring up is really interesting. And it's something that I had been talking to various people about. And he's going to reach free agency at a weird time, 31 years old, and with the way that he was a little bit of a late bloomer breaking onto the scene in Major League Baseball 25-26. I don't know that he's going to be in position to get this massive contract, not from the Yankees, not from anybody. And
Maybe 5 years.
Yeah,
5 years.
I think it'll be 4 or 5, but he's not going to be in a position to get a 10-year deal. He's not Bryce Harper or Manny Machado in that way. I think it'll be closer, really, to the type of deal that a DJ LeMahieu would get, as odd as that sounds. And you see the landscape, and we'll see how the collective bargaining agreement coming up here will affect free agency going forward. But I think that the Aaron Judge free agency conversation is really fascinating because it's so hard to predict. Are players going to start getting paid, or is this thing going to continue to operate in a way where Trevor Bauer makes $40 million a year and so do the entire Pittsburgh Pirates? So if there's going to be a half of the league that isn't willing to spend going forward, I don't know how much you can expect with the injury history of Judge that he's going to get some massive deal. I mean, the Yankees will pay him. It's not like they won't. I think a 4-year, say, $100 million contract, I think, is something that he would get at a baseline. But past that, on a massive market scale, I don't know that it's there for Judge, regardless of what happens over the next 2 years.
Such an interesting case, because if he plays 130 games and he booms like 2 of the 3 of our panelists here would say, Nick and I, if he plays 130 games, he's going to hit 40 home runs, and then he'll put up his 8 WAR with his defense, and then all of a sudden you're talking. You could count on one hand the amount of players in baseball who put up his level of production. So that factors into the salary question. So given that we have a lot to get to and we're short on time, let's go to a very similar player to Aaron Judge in Giancarlo Stanton, who he's to even more extreme extent a guy who has basically missed entire seasons, barely played last year, a dominant postseason where if the Yankees advance, he's probably being hailed in Yankee land, and it's being talked about a lot more how Giancarlo Stanton absolutely lit up the Rays in the ALDS. He had a 2019 season where he played about 12 games, which, again, that's nothing. He missed the entire season, came back for the playoffs. 2018, I think he gets an unfair shake because of the tough postseason. 38 home runs. Everyone compared it to the 60 home run season with Miami, so it was unfair. But he had a really, really good season in 2018. Stanton's a guy who I think if he plays 100 games and he's just ready for the playoffs, that's a success at this point because of how much time he's missed. I'm going bust just in the sense that I don't trust him to stay on the field. If he's on the field in the playoffs, great. The Yankees will probably be on their way to a 28th championship or at least an AL pennant. I don't think he's going to put up the production you need in the regular season.
I'm actually going to go boom on this one. And I think it goes back to something you said, Nick, about Aaron Judge, which is the wear and tear. Giancarlo Stanton, more or less, has not played the last couple of years, really. I mean, he barely played in 19, didn't play that much in 20, aside from the playoffs. So he is, you're hoping, ready to go. And I think it's a really interesting point with the Yankees. He's got a bunch more years on that contract, and you guys were talking about the Aaron Judge extension, which is a really good point. I mean, Gleyber Torres is coming up too, and you've got the Garrett Cole deal, so you've got a lot of money in other places. But, Giancarlo Stanton, I think, has to start living up to that contract as well. So this is a big year for him. I think he realizes that. He came into last year, I thought, in better shape, and I think if he can carry that into 2021 without the wear and tear, really, from the last couple of years, I think he could set himself up for a really good year. I don't think he's going to play the full 162 or close to that. I'm willing to go up to about 120 games that he'd be able to play, and I think that's a huge win for the Yankees. So I'm going to take a high upside boom on Giancarlo Stanton.
I'm going to go with a conditional boom, and that is, how do the Yankees use him this upcoming season? And I think that's really important because last year he was almost exclusively a DH, and the year before that, he was seeing significant time in left field. Well, Aaron Boone has come out and named Clint Frazier the team's starting left fielder. Brett Gardner, of course, is back, and they have Mike Tauchman and Aaron Hicks and Aaron Judge and the litany of outfielders. And I was always of the belief that Stanton just, quite frankly, was making too much money to where they could say, you're just going to be exclusively a DH. That he was going to have some production in the outfield. And I still do think that's the case, whether it's he plays 30 games in left field or something like that. Just to get guys a rest periodically. He can't not be able to play in the outfield. That said, it sounds like it's shaping up to be that no more than 30 games. I mean, they sound really bent on having Giancarlo Stanton be their DH more often than not, and that's what he's going to do. In that case, I think it's much easier for him to stay healthy. I really believe that. And that's just the truth of the matter. When you're not playing in the field, you're not going to get hurt as much. So I am inclined to say boom on Stanton because I think he will be used in the way that they are saying based upon what Boone has come out and proclaimed early. So I'm inclined to say because he's DHing, it'll be a boom. If injuries, if whatever circumstances determine that he's going to play more left field than we otherwise are led to believe, then that might change things a little bit. But if Stanton's exclusively DHing, I think it's a boom because he'll stay healthy or will be in a better position to stay healthy than he has at any point throughout his career.
I flip it for my bust, and I'm not claiming to know more about health than the Yankees do, but I think he's more likely to stay on the field if he's loose, if he's out there, if he's playing the outfield and not standing around like a stick and then slides into second base and hurts his knee like he normally does. So I think the being out there, getting your jersey dirty type attitude from Giancarlo Stanton, while he may get nicked up a little bit, he'll still get his days off. I'd like to see him in left field a little bit more than the Yankees have let on. I don't think that's going to happen, though, because every time Brian Cashman, who's really the decision maker, gets asked that question, he says, it's a safer bet to call him a DH. So I just don't see that changing. And for that reason alone, I think he's going to struggle to hit that 100-game mark.
I'm with you, but at the same time, you're skeptical about him staying healthy exclusively as a DH. He was hurt for that point in 20, came back, was exclusively the DH, and he seemed pretty healthy to me. So again, now that's different, and we haven't seen that borne out over 162. So there's no way to predict this stuff. That's why you can't predict baseball, Susan. But I'm just saying that
you really can't.
He seemed to be healthy as an exclusive DH in 2020.
I think one more stat I just wanted to get out here before we move on. Judge and Stanton have combined to play 38.5% of the Yankees games since the start of 2019. You just need more than that.
People, myself included, earlier in the show are kind of low on what the Yankees have done the last couple of years because we expect them to do great things with this roster. Take that stat alone. I mean, if Judge and Stanton are playing baseball, the Yankees are an elite baseball team. There's no other way to put it. Last year, with Judge and Stanton sidelined for a lot of that regular season, they looked very pedestrian. And when you take two players of that caliber out of the lineup, you're not going to look as good as you most likely should.